Hello and welcome to Emmanuel's English class. In this video, we will read the chapter Iswaran the Storyteller. I will read it and explain paragraph by paragraph, telling you the meaning of difficult words. So let's start. The story was narrated to Ganesh by a young man, Mahendra by name. He was a junior supervisor in a firm which offered on hire supervisors at various types of construction sites, factories, bridges, dams, and so on. Mahendra's job was to keep an eye on the activities at the work site. He had to keep moving from place to place every now and then as ordered by his head office, from a local mining area to a railway bridge construction site. From there, after a few months, to a chemical plant which was coming up somewhere. Difficult words. Supervisor, a person who watches over others' work. Firm, a company or business. Construction, the process of building something. Chemical, related to substances made in chemistry. Explanation. This story was told to Ganesh by a man named Mahendra. Mahendra worked as a junior supervisor in a company that sent supervisors to different construction projects like factories, bridges, and dams. His duty was to monitor the work at these sites. Since his company kept transferring him, he often moved from one place to another, from a coal mine to a railway bridge and then to a chemical plant. He was a bachelor. His needs were simple and he was able to adjust himself to all kinds of odd conditions, whether it was an ill-equipped circuit house or a makeshift canvas tent in the middle of a stone quarry. But one asset he had was his cook Iswaran. The cook was quite attached to Mahendra and followed him uncomplainingly wherever he was posted. He cooked for Mahendra, washed his clothes, and chatted away with his master at night. He could weave out endless stories and anecdotes on varied subjects. Difficult words. Bachelor, an unmarried man, ill equipped, not having the proper facilities, makeshift, temporary or not permanent. Quarry, a place where stones are cut from the ground. Anecdote, a short, interesting story. Explanation. Mahendra was unmarried. He lived a simple life and could adjust to difficult living situations like poorly equipped houses or temporary tents in quarries. His best support was his cook Iswaran, who was loyal and always went with him wherever he was transferred. Iswaran cooked, washed Mahendra's clothes, and told him entertaining stories every night. Iswaran also had an amazing capacity to produce vegetables and cooking ingredients seemingly out of nowhere in the middle of a desolate landscape with no shops visible for miles around. He would miraculously conjure up the most delicious dishes made with fresh vegetables within an hour of arriving at the zinc sheet shelter at the new workplace. Difficult words. Capacity, ability to do something. Desolate, empty and lonely, miraculously, in a surprising, almost magical way. Conjure, to produce something as if by magic. Shelter, a place that gives protection. Explanation. Iswaran had a surprising talent. He could somehow manage to find vegetables and cooking items even in deserted places where there were no shops. As soon as they reached a new work site, Iswaran could prepare tasty dishes from fresh vegetables within just 1 hour. Mahendra would be up early in the morning and leave for work after breakfast, carrying some prepared food with him. Meanwhile, Iswan would tidy up the shed, wash the clothes, and have a leisurely bath, pouring several buckets of water over his head, muttering a prayer all the while. It would be lunchtime by then. After eating, he would read for a while before dozing off. The book was usually some popular Tamil thriller running to hundreds of pages. Its imaginative descriptions and narrative flourishes would hold Iswaran in thrall. Difficult words, leisurely, slow and relaxed, mutter, to say something softly and unclearly, thriller, an exciting story usually full of suspense, flourish, a dramatic or impressive style, thrall, to be completely controlled or fascinated. Explanation. Mahendra usually left for work early after eating breakfast, taking lunch with him. After that, Iswaran would clean the shed, wash clothes, and take a long bath while chanting prayers. By then, it was lunchtime. After eating, he read Tamil thriller novels which were very long and full of exciting descriptions. Iswaran loved reading them and enjoyed them so much that he often got completely absorbed in the stories. His own descriptions were greatly influenced by the Tamil authors that he read. When he was narrating even the smallest of incidents, he would try to work in suspense and a surprise ending into the account. For example, instead of saying that he had come across an uprooted tree on the highway, he would say, with eyebrows suitably arched and hands held out in a dramatic gesture, "The road was deserted and I was all alone. Suddenly, I spotted something that looked like an enormous bushy beast lying sprawled across the road. I was half inclined to turn and go back. But as I came closer, I saw that it was a fallen tree with its dry branches spread out." Mahendra would stretch himself back in his canvas chair and listen to Iswaran's tales uncritically. Difficult words, incident, an event or happening. Suspense, a feeling of excitement or nervousness about what will happen next. Gesture, a movement of the hand or body to express something. Sprawled, spread out in a messy or awkward way. Uncritically, without judging or questioning. Explanation. Iswaran's storytelling style was influenced by the Tamil writers he read. He loved to add suspense and surprise even to ordinary events. For example, instead of simply saying he saw a fallen tree, he would describe it dramatically as if it was a huge monster on the road. Then he would reveal at the end that it was just a tree. Mahendra enjoyed these stories and listened to them without questioning. "The place I come from is famous for timber," Iswan would begin. "There is a richly wooded forest all around. The logs are hauled onto the lorries by elephants. They are huge, well fed beasts. When they turn wild, even the most experienced mahout is not able to control them." After this prologue, Iswan would launch into an elaborate anecdote involving an elephant. Difficult words, timber, wood prepared for building, richly, fully with abundance, hold, pulled or carried with effort, lorry, a large truck, mahot, a person who trains and takes care of elephants, prologue, an introduction to a story, anecdote, a short interesting story, explanation. Iswaran often began his stories by talking about his hometown, which was famous for timber. He described how elephants carried logs of wood from the forest to lorries. But he also explained that when these elephants became wild, even skilled mahots could not control them. After this introduction, he would usually go on to tell a dramatic story about an elephant. One day, a tusker escaped from the timber yard and began to roam about, stamping on bushes, tearing up wild creepers, and breaking branches at will. You know, sir, how an elephant behaves when it goes mad? Iswaran would get so caught up in the excitement of his own story that he would get up from the floor and jump about, stamping his feet in emulation of the mad elephant. Difficult words. Tusker, a male elephant with long tusks. Roam, to move around freely. Creepers, plants that grow along the ground or climb. Emulation, the act of imitating or copying someone or something. Explanation. Iswaran said that one day a tusker escaped from the timber yard. It began to destroy everything, crushing bushes, tearing vines, and breaking branches. He explained that a mad elephant is very dangerous. While narrating, Iswan became so excited that he acted like the elephant himself, stamping his feet to show how the animal behaved. The elephant reached the outskirts of our town, breaking the fences down like matchsticks. He would continue. It came into the main road and smashed all the stalls selling fruits, mud pots, and clothes. People ran helter skelter in panic. The elephant now entered a school ground where children were playing, breaking through the brick wall. All the boys ran into the classrooms and shut the doors tight. The beast grunted and wandered about, pulling out the football goal post, tearing down the volleyball net, kicking and flattening the drum cap for water, and uprooting the shrubs. Meanwhile, all the teachers had climbed up to the terrace of the school buildings. From there, they helplessly watched the depredations of the elephant. There was not a soul below on the ground. The streets were empty, as if the inhabitants of the entire town had suddenly disappeared. Difficult words. Outskirts, the outer parts of a town. Helter skelter, in confusion without order. Grunted, a low, rough sound made by animals. Depredations, acts of destruction or damage. Soul, person. Here, not a soul means no one. Inhabitants, people living in a place. Explanation. The elephant moved towards the town's edge, breaking fences as if they were just sticks. It entered the main street, smashing fruit and pot stalls. People ran everywhere in fear. Then it entered a school ground by breaking a wall. The children quickly hid inside classrooms and locked the doors. The elephant destroyed everything: goalposts, nests, water drums, and plants. Teachers climbed onto the roof and watched helplessly. The whole town looked deserted, as if no people lived there. I was studying in the junior class at that time and was watching the whole drama from the rooftop. I don't know what came over me suddenly. I grabbed a cane from the hands of one of the teachers and ran down the stairs and into the open. The elephant grunted and menacingly swung a branch of a tree which it held in its trunk. It stamped its feet, kicking up a lot of mud and dust. It looked frightening, but I moved slowly towards it, stick in hand. People were watching the scene, hypnotized from nearby housetops. The elephant looked at me red eyed, ready to rush towards me. It lifted its trunk and trumpeted loudly. At that moment, I moved forward and, mustering all my force, wagged at its third toenail on the quick. The beast looked stunned for a moment, then it shivered from head to foot and collapsed. Difficult words, menacingly, in a threatening or scary way. Hypnotized, completely focused, unable to look away. Trumpeted, a loud sound made by an elephant. Mustering, gathering courage or strength. Whacked, hit hard. Toenail, the hard cover at the end of the toe. Collapsed, fell down suddenly. Explanation. Iswaran continued, saying that he was just a small boy at the time, watching everything from the roof. Suddenly, he felt brave. He took a cane from a teacher and ran down. The elephant looked terrifying, swinging a tree branch and stamping the ground. Still, Iswaran walked up to it with courage. Everyone was watching in shock. The elephant was about to attack, but Iswaran hit its toenail hard with all his strength. The elephant froze, shook all over, and then fell to the ground. At this point, Iswaran would leave the story unfinished and get up mumbling, "I will be back after lighting the gas and warming up the dinner." Mahendra, who had been listening with rapt attention, would be left hanging. When he returned, Iswaran would not pick up the thread of the story right away. Mahendra would have to remind him that the conclusion was pending. Difficult words, unfinished, not completed, mumbling, speaking unclearly in a low voice, rapt attention, complete and deep attention, thread. Here, the continuation of a story, pending, still to be done, not completed. Explanation. Each one would always stop his story suddenly at an exciting point. He would say he needed to light the stove and prepare dinner, leaving Mahendra waiting eagerly. Mahendra listened with great interest, but Iswaran never continued immediately. Mahendra had to remind him to finish the story. Well, a veterinary doctor was summoned to revive the animal. Iswaran would shrug casually. 2 days later, it was led away by its mahout to the jungle. Difficult words, veterinary, related to animal doctors. Summoned, called for someone to come. Revive, to bring back to life or consciousness. Mahout, an elephant keeper or trainer. Explanation. Iswaran finally said that a veterinary doctor was called to wake the elephant up. After 2 days, the elephant was taken back to the jungle by its caretaker, the mahout. Well, how did you manage to do it, Iswaran? How did you bring down the beast? Difficult words. Manage. To succeed in doing something. Beast. A large wild animal. Explanation. Mahendra, still amazed, asked Iswaran how he was able to bring down such a huge animal all by himself. It has something to do with a Japanese art. I think so, karate or jujitsu it is called. I had read about it somewhere. It temporarily paralyzes the nervous system, you see. Difficult words. Karate, a Japanese martial art of self defense. Jujitsu, a Japanese martial art using holds and throws. Temporarily, for a short time, paralyzes, stops movement or action. Nervous system, the body's network of nerves controlling movement. Explanation. Iswaran answered confidently. He said it was a Japanese martial art, maybe karate or jujitsu, that he had read about. He claimed that hitting in a special way could temporarily paralyze the animal's nervous system, which is why the elephant fell down. Not a day passed without Iswan recounting some story packed with adventure, horror, and suspense. Whether the story was credible or not, Mahendra enjoyed listening to it because of the inimitable way in which it was told. Iswaran seemed to more than make up for the absence of a TV in Mahendra's living quarters. Difficult words, recounting, narrating or telling in detail. Adventure, an unusual, exciting or risky experience. Credible, believable, inimitable, impossible to copy, very unique. Quarters, living space or residence. Explanation. Every day Iswan told Mahendra a new story. These stories were always full of excitement, fear, and suspense. Even if they were not always believable, Mahendra still enjoyed them because Iswan's style of storytelling was so unique and entertaining. In fact, his stories made up for the lack of television in Mahendra's lonely quarters. One morning, when Mahendra was having breakfast, Iswan asked, "Can I make something special for dinner tonight, sir? After all, today is an auspicious day. According to tradition, we prepare various delicacies to feed the spirits of our ancestors today, sir." Difficult words. Auspicious, lucky or favorable. Tradition, a custom passed down through generations. Delicacies, special fine or rare foods. Spirits, souls of the dead, ancestors, family members from earlier generations. Explanation. One morning while Mahendra was eating, Iswan asked if he could prepare something special for dinner. He explained that the day was auspicious because, according to tradition, special dishes were cooked to honor and feed the spirits of ancestors. That night, Mahendra enjoyed the most delicious dinner and complimented Iswan on his culinary skills. He seemed very pleased but unexpectedly launched into a most garish account involving the supernatural. Difficult words, complimented, praised politely, culinary, related to cooking, launched, started suddenly, garish, too bright, showy, or overdone, supernatural, things beyond natural explanation. Explanation. That evening, Mahendra ate the delicious meal and praised Iswaran for being such a good cook. Iswaran felt proud, but suddenly he began telling a strange and scary story about ghosts and supernatural things. You know, sir, this entire factory area we are occupying was once a burial ground. He started. Mahendra was jerked out of the pleasant reverie he had drifted into after the satisfying meal. Difficult words. Burial ground, a place where people are buried after death. Jerked, moved suddenly or shocked. Pleasant, nice, enjoyable. Reverie, a daydream or pleasant thought. Drifted, slowly moved or fell into. Explanation. Iswan began by saying that the factory area where they were living had once been a burial ground. Mahendra, who had been relaxed and happy after his meal, was suddenly disturbed and shocked by this statement. I knew on the first day itself when I saw a human skull lying on the path. Even now, I come across a number of skulls and bones, Iswaran continued. Difficult words. Skull, the bone structure of the head. Bones, hard structures that form the skeleton. Continued, kept on talking. Explanation. Iswaran said that on his very first day in the area, he noticed a human skull lying on the road. Even now, he often found skulls and bones scattered. He went on to narrate how he sometimes saw ghosts at night. I am not easily frightened by these things, sir. I am a brave fellow. But one horrible ghost of a woman which appears off and on at midnight during the full moon. It is an ugly creature with matted hair and a shriveled face, like a skeleton holding a fetus in its arms. Difficult words. Narrate, to tell a story. Horrible, very frightening or disgusting. Appears off and on. Shows up from time to time. Matted, hair tangled and messy. Shriveled, wrinkled and dried up. A skeleton, the bone structure of a body. Fetus, a baby before birth inside the womb. Explanation. Iswaran continued that he sometimes saw ghosts at night. He said he wasn't scared of them because he was brave. But he described one very terrifying ghost, a woman who appears at midnight during the full moon. She looked ugly with tangled hair, a wrinkled face, and she carried a fetus, an unborn baby, in her arms like a skeleton. Mahendra shivered at the description and interrupted rather sharply. You are crazy, Iswaran. There are no such things as ghosts or spirits. It is all a figment of your imagination. Get your digestive system examined and maybe your head as well. You are talking nonsense. Difficult words. Shivered, trembled with fear or cold. Interrupted, cut someone off while speaking. Sharply, in an angry or strict tone. Figment, something imaginary, not real. Imagination, the ability to create ideas in the mind. Nonsense, foolish or silly talk. Explanation. Hearing this scary description, Mahendra became frightened and shivered. He quickly cut Iswaran short, saying angrily that he was crazy. Mahendra told him ghosts don't exist and it was just his imagination. He even mocked Iswaran, saying he should get his stomach and maybe his brain checked. He left the room and retired for the night, expecting Iswaran would sell for a couple of days. But the next morning he was surprised to find the cook as cheerful and talkative as ever. Difficult words. Retired, went to bed or rested. Expecting, thinking something would happen. Sulk, to stay silent and upset. Cheerful, happy and smiling. Talkative, liking to talk a lot. Explanation. After scolding Iswaran, Mahendra left the room and went to sleep. He thought Iswaran would remain upset, sulking for a few days. But the next morning, Mahendra was surprised to see that Iswaran was cheerful and chatting as usual, as if nothing had happened. From that day on, Mahendra, for all his brave talk, went to bed with a certain unease. Every night he peered into the darkness outside through the window next to his bed, trying to make sure that there was no movement of dark shapes in the vicinity. But he could only see a set of darkness with the twinkling lights of the factory miles away. Difficult words, unease, feeling of worry or discomfort. Peered, looked carefully or closely. Darkness, the state of being dark, vicinity, the area nearby. Twinkling, shining with small flashes of light. From that day onward, even though Mahendra had confidently said ghosts don't exist, he secretly felt uneasy at night. Every night, he would carefully look out of the window near his bed to check if any dark figures were moving around. But all he ever saw was complete darkness, with only the far away lights of the factory shining faintly. He had always liked to admire the milk-white landscape on full moon nights. But after hearing Iswaran's story of the female ghost, he avoided looking out of his window altogether when the moon was full. Difficult words. Admire, to look at with enjoyment or appreciation. Landscape, a view of the land or scenery. Altogether, completely, totally. Explanation. Earlier, Mahendra loved to enjoy the beauty of the land under the white light of the full moon. But after Iswaran's frightening story about the ghost woman, he stopped looking outside on full moon nights. One night, Mahendra was woken up from his sleep by a low moan close to his window. At first, he put it down to a cat prowling around for mice, but the sound was too guttural for a cat. He resisted the curiosity to look out lest he should behold a sight which would stop his heart. But the wailing became louder and less feline. He could not resist the temptation anymore. Lowering himself to the level of the windowsill, he looked out at the white sheet of moonlight outside. There, not too far away, was a dark cloudy form clutching a bundle. Mahendra broke into a cold sweat and fell back on the pillow, panting. Difficult words. Moan, a low, sad, painful sound. Prowling, moving quietly while hunting. Guttural, a harsh, deep sound from the throat. Resist, to fight against doing something. Curiosity, the desire to know or see something. Behold, to see something unusual or impressive. Wailing, a long loud cry of pain or sadness. Feline, related to cats. Temptation, strong desire to do something. Windowsill, the ledge at the bottom of a window. Clutching, holding tightly. Panting, breathing quickly because of fear or exhaustion. One night, Mahendra suddenly woke up because he heard a low, sad sound near his window. At first, he thought it was just a cat hunting for mice, but the sound was too deep and harsh to be a cat's voice. He tried to control his curiosity and avoided looking outside because he was afraid of seeing something that could terrify him. But the crying sound grew louder and didn't seem like that of a cat anymore. Finally, he gave in and looked outside. Under the moonlight, he saw a dark, cloudy figure holding a bundle in its arms. Shocked with fear, Mahendra began to sweat and fell back on his bed, breathing heavily. As he gradually recovered from the ghastly experience, he began to reason with himself and finally concluded that it must have been some sort of autosuggestion, some trick that his subconscious had played on him. Difficult words. Gradually, slowly, step by step. Ghastly, terrifying, horrible. Reason, to think logically and carefully. Autosuggestion, a belief created in the mind by one's own imagination. Subconscious, the part of the mind that works without awareness. Explanation. After some time, Mahendra calmed down from the terrifying experience. He told himself that it was probably just his imagination. He thought his mind had played a trick on him because of what Iswaran had said earlier. By the time he had got up in the morning, had a bath, and come out to have his breakfast, the horror of the previous night had faded from his memory. Iswaran greeted him at the door with his lunch packet and his bag. Just as Mahendra was stepping out, Iswaran grinned and said, "Sir, remember the other day when I was telling you about the female ghost with a fetus in its arms? You were so angry with me for imagining things. Well, you saw her yourself last night. I came running, hearing the sound of moaning that was coming from your room." Difficult words. Horror, intense fear or shock. Faded, slowly disappeared. Grinned, smiled broadly. Fetus, an unborn baby inside the womb. Moaning, low, painful crying sound. Explanation. By the next morning, after getting ready and having breakfast, Mahendra had almost forgotten the fear of the night. Iswaran met him at the door with his lunch and bag. Just as Mahendra was leaving, Iswaran smiled and reminded him about the ghost story. He said, "Sir, remember how you got angry with me for saying there is a ghost woman with a baby? Well, last night you actually saw her. I came running when I heard moaning sounds from your room." A chill went down Mahendra's spine. He did not wait for Iswan to complete his sentence. He hurried away to his office and handed in his papers, resolving to leave the haunted place the very next day. Difficult words. Chill. A sudden cold feeling, often from fear, spine, backbone, hurried, rushed quickly, handed in, submitted, resolving, firmly deciding, haunted, believed to be visited by ghosts. Mahendra felt a shiver of fear run through his body after hearing this. Without waiting to hear the rest of what Iswan was saying, he rushed off to work. He even submitted his resignation papers and decided to leave that so called haunted place the very next day.